There's a lot of problems out there in the world, and it can feel overwhelming, and what on earth can I even do? But for me, I was like, water is something that we can do something about. Like Lesotho has water. This is something we can actually make a difference in. We don't need to be like hugely crazy entrepreneurs coming up with cutting edge technology. It's literally like digging ditches and putting down pipes.
Welcome to Multiple Hats, a show about STEM professionals who have gone off script and carved their own path beyond the tracks that were set for them. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine, how they found their why and what it takes to make it happen. I'm Angelique, and on the show today, we're talking social entrepreneurship with Lokisa Water Project. We are on a totally different flavor and landscape today, and I'm so excited because impact and entrepreneurship is not always about groundbreaking technologies. It is also about deploying solutions where these matter the most. And that's what Tom Jacobs, the founder of Lokisa Water Project, did. Lokisa Water Project is a non-profit organization bringing infrastructure and water to remote locations in Lesotho. Picture it 500 kilometers from Johannesburg in South Africa. People who had to hike for hours have now a water tap with clean water. Children singing, "Thank you, Lokisa," excited to wash their hands with a tap at school. Hear the song. And look, it can be so overwhelming to look beyond our first world problems and see all the people in need when you are only one of you, one person. What can you do? But guess what? You are one person with tons of skills. And I can't say it better than Tom did. He said, "I'm going to bring water to people who don't have it, one tap at a time." This one is close to my heart because I worked with Tom when he was an engineer at a biotech company in Sydney, and little did I know how much greatness he had to offer, leaving a great deal of privileges to better the life of so many, one tap at a time. Tom, I forgive you for the pineapple on the pizza. Buckle up for Tom and Blitz's candid story of building Lokisa Water Project from the ground up. I promise you pragmatic views, impact, zero white savior narrative, and fun. Well, let's start with Lokisa. So, can you give me the company pitch? What's in the name and what are you aiming to do with Lokisa Water Project?
My name is Bokang Ntseo, but I'm called Blitz here, and I'm one of the directors of Lokisa. My role is to help find these remote locations in the country that we aim to help and better lives at. To translate quite easily what the name Lokisa means, it means to fix, to repair, to replace, or to maintain. So the objective of the organization is to maintain already existing water systems in rural areas of Lesotho. Or if they're not there, we start from scratch. We build everything from scratch and leave education to the villages on how to go about maintaining the systems so that they last them longer.
Can you give me a bit of context of the situation in Lesotho and why such a project matters there?
My country is one of those countries in the world with the most abundance of water, clean water, but most of which our children cannot have access to because it's the most important natural resource that get sold outside the country, but the citizens do not have enough access to the water. And as mountainous as it is, you might say the country is not able to deliver such services to the people in the rural areas because of lack of roads and the infrastructure that is required for this to be possible. So as Lokisa, we are trying by all means with the best that we have and the resources that we have to try and reach to those inaccessible areas in the country to help better the lives of these people by having them have access to clean and safe water.
Okay, so currently you've got a country that is the size of Belgium or perhaps a few Tasmania for the listener in there, and you're saying the infrastructure isn't there to support the distribution of water, which is an abundant resource that gets both sold out of the country, but unfortunately not distributed well inside the country due to infrastructure issues. And that's what you address there.
Correct. My name's Tom Jacobs, and I am a director of Lokisa, founder of Lokisa. My role is organizing, logistics, fundraising, design water systems. I think probably problem solver is probably actually a better job title. I reckon it's important to mention about Lesotho as well, that it's a very unique country. Like the first time I came to Lesotho, when I was thinking Africa, I was thinking like deserts and lions and, like kind of like your classic Africa. And I got here and it's green and it's huge mountains and it's a completely wild place. It's nothing like what I expected. And the weathers are extreme. We have huge rains and then huge winds, and then it's super hot, and then you have a thunderstorm, and it's just like it's a very extreme place. And they actually call it the Switzerland of Africa because it snows a lot. In winter, it snows a lot. Lesotho is quite a unique, like remote, isolated kind of place where you have these rural villages that are so far tucked in the mountains and so far out of reach that they're kind of like forgotten almost. Like the government's forgotten. It's like untouched. People don't even know what's happening there. And oftentimes, like Litz was saying, that there's not good access to water and people are actually struggling for some of the basics. So Bliss, you were talking about water, about the capacities. There's a dam near us called Mahali Dam. It's the second biggest dam in Lesotho. It has 7.5 billion liters in it. And the population of Lesotho is about 2 million people. So Warragamba Dam supplies all of Sydney. That's got a capacity, I think, 3 billion liters. It's like around 4 million people it supplies. So just to get that idea that like the second biggest dam in Lesotho is 2.5 times bigger than the dam which supplies like all of Sydney. The contrast is insane that there's just so much water, but people don't have access to it. It blows your mind a bit. It's a real solvable problem. It's like the solution's there. The water is there. We just got to get it to the people.
I love what you just said there, because when I talk about entrepreneurship with all those people, a lot of time we're about innovation, groundbreaking technology, new things. And that's great, right? We want innovation. We want to solve human health. We want to solve climate change and all these things. But a lot of issues and challenging in the world have no solution. It's just we need to implement that. And so I'm saying that for any aspiring change maker, sometimes it's not about inventing the next generation of technology. It's about deploying solution in a pragmatic way where it's actually needed. And that's already a super big impact that you can make. So I was about to ask, if I close my eyes, what do I see in Lesotho? But I think you guys have described that very well. Beautiful nature, place, big and not accessible in terms of infrastructure. So I understand why it matters then for the country. Why did it matter to you, Tom, being an Australian coming to Lesotho? Why did you decide? What is your emotional and commitment to this country, which I suppose you had never visited before?
Wow, that's a huge question. That's a difficult one to answer. I've fallen in love with Lesotho, I could say. My wife's grandfather was born in Lesotho. When I was dating her, she would talk about Lesotho and I'd be like, I have no idea what that is. What is it a country? Is it what even is it? Obviously, I did some Googling and polished up on Lesotho.
It's for anyone who doesn't know where it is. It's a lockland in South Africa, and picture it 500 kilometers down Johannesburg. I don't know how long it takes to go from Johannesburg to Lesotho though with the roads, but 500 kilometers, let's say.
It's roughly 4 or 5 hours.
And we actually have a king here, which is also quite unique. And it's a country with like a rich history, but very little known. Nobody's ever heard of Lesotho. But it's a small country and it's got a wealth of resources, and there's real potential to make a major positive impact in Lesotho.
Okay, so you were saying you fell in love with it. Your wife's grandfather was born there. You discovered that through her, and then?
Then we met some of the family members from Lesotho, and they were talking about this village that her grandfather was born in. And they were saying they're having a really difficult situation there because there was no water, no access to clean water, and a lot of the people were struggling there. And the family members were talking about doing a water project there. And with my background, like chemical engineering, and obviously you do a lot of process and water and that kind of stuff. And I thought, my wife Laura and I talked about it, and we were like, let's go to Lesotho and let's see what we can do in this village. and do something totally different out of the box. So we went to Lesotho and we lived in the village. I think we were in Lesotho for about 9 months, and it took sort of 7 months of that time to do this water project. It was quite a shock for us coming from the northern beaches of Sydney. We went to this village. We lived in a container. There was no electricity. We had obviously limited access to water. And it was quite a life-changing experience living in the village with the people and working with them on getting a water system going. And that's probably where the whole idea of Lokisa and our passion for the country originated.
So that first project, that wasn't Lokisa, that was a different project, and then you started Lokisa?
Yeah, that was a different project. That was a number of years ago now. And we moved back to Australia after completing that project. And then a job opportunity came up in Lesotho in medicinal cannabis. And that's actually how Blitz and I met. We worked together on medicinal cannabis. Moved back to Lesotho as an opportunity to come back to the country we loved, and actually have a sustainable way of being here.
So that's at MG Health. MG Health grows, manufactures, and supply global market in medicinal cannabis. Tom, you're an engineer there?
Yeah, I started out here as a production manager, and then fortunately I moved away from production. I realized that there's 300 people employed here at MG Health. It's quite a big company. And I found for myself, I love the technical detail. And I found you end up doing a lot of HR and a lot of things that are not really, I learned. It was really great. I learned that was not my passion, and more the technical engineering side is my passion. And so I've been able to move away from production and move into my role now, like a technical services manager. So it's in anything technical I get involved in. So it's actually been a great move. And then it's been awesome working with Blitz. Been working with Blitz for over 5 years now. But Blitz, please.
When I got here, I think we got around the same time as Tom, but he came a bit before me. And I started off as the production assistant. And then in 4 months, I was in QC as the QC assistant, moved on to quality control officer, then assistant QA manager, then deputy QA manager, and I'm currently the head of quality for MG Health.
Awesome. How does it fit into the picture with Lokisa? Are you guys working full-time in Lokisa, part-time? How is it working?
It's part-time because you'll realize that after we're done with the one project at a specific village, we're going to have to raise funds and wait for the money to accumulate for the next project that we plan to take on. So we work on a budget. So it is part-time.
Okay. And so how is it working with your corporate employment? Are they supportive of your work there on the time?
They're very supportive. I'll give you an example. We usually raise funds through selling of the merchandise, the Lokisa merchandise. As you can see, Tom has his t-shirt on. It's quite nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we sell those and we sell these sun hats, we sell the caps, all in different fashions. So our fellow employees are really helpful in buying these things. We do let them know that this is a cheaper sun hat that you can buy, but for fundraising purposes, we're going to sell it for this much. So they understand that we're not ripping them off, you know. So they've been quite helpful in supporting us help raise the funds for the project.
And from your perspective, Tom, founding the company, being employed corporately like that, did you have to negotiate being able to do that both? In Australia, you'd have in your contract that you have to inform your employers and have arrangement. How would it work for you? Was that difficult, or was that very a no-brainer and they were super supportive from the beginning?
Yeah, they were super supportive. One of the sort of pitches that I got to even move here was that MG Health has the opportunity to really positively influence Lesotho, create jobs and make Lesotho a world leader in medicinal cannabis. And when I was talking about doing water projects to help the people of Lesotho, like everybody's on board. So it's really supportive. It's also been great working with MG Health because we have a wide range of employees and different expertise, and people know different things. So it's actually really great. I can call like our finance person and ask them, how do I sort out this issue with tax? And they'll help me sort it out and stuff like that. It's actually been really good having MG Health support.
So they support even in kind and in knowledge. That's really good to hear.
Yeah. But also, like with Lokisa, it's a volunteer organization. So we're not making any money. It's all outside of hours of work. I probably spend like an hour a day, half an hour to an hour a day on Lokisa. We have one full-time employee and he goes from village to village. And we then employ local people within the village, a temporary contract to do the work. in the village. And then while we're there, we train them up on general plumbing and water system maintenance and, just anything water related, hygiene, water saving, all this kind of thing. We train up the guys in the village. Then we create a water committee and sort of hand over to that water committee. It's a lot of project based, train up, hand over and move on. So it's our actual staffing needs are pretty low. One full-time guy, and then it's volunteers and casual guys from the village. So it's quite a workable, low cost organization. We can do a lot of work with not huge financial input.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also, again, that's for any aspiring change maker. You can have a corporate employment, sustain yourself, and then still make impact with not that much resource. Because I find that coming from Australia, it's like we talk about venture capital and all the money and the funding, and it looks like you need so much to do anything. And I think it's good to get this perspective that sometimes, depending on what you want to do, you can still make impact without having a huge amount of resources, especially when you transfer that into a different country, which have perhaps a different mindset. So can you tell me about the project?
Lokisa we actually started during COVID. Probably the short story there was we came back to Australia. Lauren and I came back to Australia during COVID to have our second child. And we got locked down there and obviously couldn't leave. So we're working remotely. And in Lesotho, the lockdown at the beginning of COVID was like extreme. Blitz, you were here, but it was extreme, right? Like I've heard stories about the military getting involved and like police are monitoring the streets, and it was like proper serious lockdown.
It was really intense because there was no inter-district movement. And for some of us who work in the mountains, like myself and Tom, if Tom was here, we were not able to go to town to get the groceries and all of that. So a truck would literally have to go down and get us everything that we needed and then come back up. We couldn't even see our family members at the time. So it was quite a challenging period.
I found myself sitting in Australia. It was in the middle of winter. It was cold, but we had electricity. We had water on the tap. We could go to the supermarket. Like we had all those sort of the basic needs were all there. And I was able to work. I was still able to earn money. And I was talking to friends in Lesotho who were just like in a terrible situation. Couldn't leave the house for like fear of getting beaten up by the police. And like it couldn't work, didn't have access to water. And it was just like, there's a lot of problems out there in the world and it can feel overwhelming and what on earth can I even do? But for me, I was like, water is something that we can do something about. Like Lesotho has water. This is something we can actually make a difference in. We don't need to be like hugely crazy entrepreneurs coming up with cutting edge technology. It's literally like digging ditches and putting down pipes. The quote from James, like the brother of Jesus, I'm going to get the quote wrong, but something along the lines of when you see your brother in need or see like your brother without water or without clothes, and you say to your brother, like, peace be with you and, be well fed, be well hydrated, be on your way type thing. And you just give them words and you don't actually do anything. You just give them words. And I was like convicted that I was in Australia. I felt like I was just giving words. Like I wasn't able to do anything. And then it was like, I don't know, we'll just starting one tap at a time. Let's try and do something. And speaking with Blitz and some of the other guys there in Lesotho, we can make a plan we can start trying to make a difference here. And that's how Lokisa was like officially born out of like the pain and frustration of COVID. I feel like it put us in a position to be able to actually make something official and get something started. And it's been awesome.
Oh, it definitely works that matter. So thanks for sharing that. That's very insightful. And I think many people crystallize their values during COVID. You're not unique in that of saying, okay, this is extreme and I want to do something useful about life. So that's great that you've been able to actually achieve that. So again, let's go back to a few highlights of the projects that you've been achieving since starting. And perhaps if you can run me through one of the projects.
So Bliss, I should let you talk about your village because that's like a highlight and one of the first projects that Lokisa did as an official organization.
I still call that the biggest moment of Lokisa because it was a very successful project, the very first one that we kicked off. So after Tom had spoken to me about this whole thing, I made him aware of where I was born and raised, went to Google Maps and located my house there. And you could tell he was convinced that there was no road, there was no cell phone reception, and of course there was no water. But I think Back in 2002, the government went there and built some tanks and taps, but then the maintenance was not done on them at all. So everything broke down and people started collecting water from the wells. And that says that human beings and animals were sharing these wells for drinking. And we experienced a very terrible drought in 2014, 15, 16, where the wells dried out, and it was a terrible thing to experience, especially in the rural areas where there was no water supply. So we decided to kickstart the project and make it be Lokisa's first at my village. Initially, the aim was to just build tanks and taps. But then upon starting the project and realizing that there's no toilets, they go at the back of the mountain and do their business there. I grew up doing that myself. I'm a product of that. And
Bliss, I have to say, that was the biggest shock for me, was it was like, sure, there's no water. That's pretty rough. And then I just assumed, maybe this is like a Western privilege thing. I just assumed, of course, they've got toilets.
yeah, you didn't believe me when I told you we don't have toilets. You were like, what? How are you guys surviving there? Until it back into your head that this is a reality. So with the little that was remaining from the budget for only building taps, we bought corrugated iron toilets and started digging pits for the latrines to be installed. So it was quite a monumental time for Lokisa with the project, the very first one that we.
So how long does it take to do such a project? So you're saying, okay, you're going to a village and you install, I don't know, 15 toilets. And how long does it take? And how much money do you know? Because you said, okay, it's all funded by fundraising, I understand. So and some merchandise, which is like not really a revenue stream, but a way of doing fundraising too. Yeah. How long in time and in money do you need to actually kick off a project like that?
Because that project was started in the winter, it gets very cold here, minus 10 degrees. The roads are very slippery. There's snow. That's one of the root causes that delays the project. It would actually take a bit of a shorter time to complete. But because we also don't have roads, Tom likes this one because we would take the building materials with donkeys and horses, and people would have to carry toilets by themselves because there's just no road. The village is just not accessible. These are some of the things that delay the project. So I think if I'm right, Tom, the very first one took about 7-8 months.
Yeah, something like that, please.
Okay, take me through. You get the toilets from the city and then you put them on a truck and then you drive with them. And then you've got to do donkey and people for how long? How many kilometers?
About an hour walking.
Yeah, okay. So substantial. Yeah, walking.
Yeah.
So that was Harlech-Latza. Harlech-Latza was about an hour's walk. But a recent project we just completed, a village called Quibanyane, it was an 8-hour hike up a mountain to get the toilets there. So that one was like proper serious. Like that was seriously remote, that village.
Yeah.
Wow. 8 hours with donkeys then.
Yeah. And it was also snowing there. I think we have pictures of when they were digging the trenches in the snow. No amount of cold stopped Lokisa from continuing with the project.
There's a cool picture of the guys lighting fires, like with snow everywhere, and then they're lighting fires near the dig site. And I was saying, what are you guys doing with the fires? And then it's a really obvious one. It's so cold. The only way that we can work is by starting a fire there and going and warming our hands up every few minutes and getting back to work. What else can you do? And this is what's great to have the villagers involved too. When you go there and talk about getting a water system, it's like the response you get is always one of such joy and enthusiasm. It's always nice. I feel like you go to a village, maybe in other industries, you pitch an idea and people are like, oh yeah, that's an okay idea. But with water, we're going to put a water system in. Everybody's always like, yes. It's always a positive response, which is nice.
Look, that was on my question. What is the response from the community? Do you have to do outreach? How do you convince them? But everybody's always on board, right? Because it benefits them.
When you've been without water for the longest time, any kind of help that comes, you jump to it. They're always more than willing to help in any way that they can, just to get access to clean and safe water. Because if you have to share water with animals, then it's unhygienic, that water. and you understand that animals also have to drink.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
And so you get, as you say, contractors, but also I understand then local people are chipping in.
Yeah, I think that's always a big part of the project is you need the community buy-in. You need the village to get on board and be part of the project and be part of what's happening. In some of the villages we go to, like there's an old water system. I think like in the 80s, the Lesotho government did a whole lot of village water projects. And the villages, like in the 80s, there was actually quite good water supply. And they just weren't maintained. So we actually come across a few of the workers who were there in the 80s who helped build the system. They know where the pipes go. They know everything about the system. They just haven't had the resources or anything to actually fix it or maintain it. So we've seen the real benefit of getting the villagers to take ownership and to get involved. Going forward, if there's a problem, like they know where we really want it to be sustainable. We leave them with the toolbox and with spare parts and stuff like that because things break. And like Blitz says, in the winter when it snows, pipes freeze and pipes burst. And that's that every winter, it always like you're just expecting pipes to burst. It is what it is. So we try and dig it far enough down that it gets the earth, that keep the temperatures a bit more reasonable. But there's always pipes that go above ground. There's always taps that burst. So having guys on the ground who know what to do and can take ownership and maintain their system is a huge part of what Lokisa does because, yeah, we've just seen if there's not ownership and there's not training of like a water committee, we always make a water committee. If there's not that water committee, then things fall into disrepair because like the local government won't do anything about it. So it's up to each village to take care of their own system. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. And I'm really glad that you outlined that because one of my burning questions, I was wondering, coming from Australia, coming into Lesotho, how were you received and perceived? Lesotho being an enclave in South Africa and the history of colonialism and the apartheid in South Africa is, of course, unspeakable. And so I was wondering, even though Lesotho's never been part of South Africa, how much this influenced Lesotho's people perception of white people? And was there this narrative and how did you overcome it if it was? Here is another white dude that comes and tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And to put that into context, in Australia, where Tom is from, it was all a colony, even though independent now, but we still live with indigenous people in Australia. And it's definitely a big thing where the government does lots of policies without the right consultation. And it's literally the white people telling the indigenous people what to do, and it doesn't work. So I was really curious about that narrative and perhaps from both your perspective. Yeah, how were you received and did you have to overcome that?
I think probably to start with is that Lesotho has always been an independent country. It's never been part of South Africa. So there was no apartheid in Lesotho. And Blitz, I think you can help me here, but there was a point, I think South Africa wanted to invade Lesotho. And then the Lesotho went to like the UK and were like, please make us part of the Commonwealth so that if South Africa invades us, they're not invading just little old Lesotho, they're invading a British protectorate. Is that correct, Blitz?
Yes, that's correct, Tom. When it comes to the question of race and all of that, we are very different. We are very accepting. And I think Tom can agree to this, that he did not feel like an outsider when he got here because the welcoming was so warm. Yes, there's not a lot of white people in the country, but there are. And the kind of treatment that they receive is so respectful. And the very fact that he got here and went to the rural side of the country where the civilization is not so intense, he got the respect that I don't think he was expecting from a black person. So that's the kind of atmosphere that reigns in the most mountainous regions of the country.
What's your take on that, Tom? Did you feel at any point, I need to be tippy-toe?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely when you go into a village as a white guy, you obviously stand out a lot. I think, yeah, because Lesotho was always independent and been its own country with its own king and that kind of stuff for a really long time. It's really fortunate that a lot of those narratives are not here. I grew my beard and my biggest challenge was going into a village and I'd say hello to the children and then they'd start crying because they'd seen this very strange looking white guy with this huge like hair on his face. And
did you scare the children?
I scared the children. It was quite confronting.
Oh, that's so funny.
But otherwise, I've hardly had any challenges. I think it is important to keep in mind, you don't want to go with that white savior complex that you do see. I don't want to go thinking that I know the solutions to all your problems. With Lokisa, we go and we do a survey of the village and we ask the villagers, like, what are your needs and where do you see the problems are? And we really try and listen and not just tell them, this is what you need, let us come and do it. And we've seen that, like, even some major international organization saw in Lesotho that at the schools, there was a lack of water access at schools. And they bought 10,000 liter water tanks I think it's for every school in Lesotho. And they delivered them, dropped them off, and that was it. And they weren't installed. So all these schools throughout Lesotho have got these big tanks and they were never installed. They were just dropped off. And it was almost like here's your problem. We're going to solve it by giving you a water tank. Then that was the end of the thought. It wasn't, do they actually want a water tank? Do they have the resources to install the water tank? All these, do they even have water in that village? Like all these sort of additional questions that were never asked. Obviously, we're not perfect, but we're trying to learn from other organizations' mistakes. And being that we're a small organization and we have the time to listen and really make sure what we're going to do is actually what people want, because we don't want to go there and do something people don't want.
Yeah, exactly. So then in terms of roadmap, when you created it, obviously with this strong drive to make an impact and bring water where it's needed, but did you have a bit of a roadmap on where you wanted to go and the project that had the most priority? I understand the first was like, okay, let's go back to the roots. This is where Blitz was from. So let's start there. But then past that first pilot, let's call it a pilot. Did you create a roadmap and milestones? And I understand you're doing what called customer research. How did that work out?
It was more of a case of there's a problem and we can provide a solution, like almost like one tap at a time. Like we know, like Blitz was talking about his village, we can do something in your village. Let's go. While we're there, we'll work out our next steps. So to be honest, that's how it started. Since then, we have started to have more milestones and goals and stuff like that. But yeah, when it started, it was literally just trying to do so, just doing anything we could. Now we've got better goals and milestones and stuff like that. We've got a plan for 2024. We've got mapped out each quarter what our goals are. So how many schools do we want to do in that month? What villages are we focusing on? So we've now much more organized than what we were at the start.
Which makes sense. So what year in you get support from an NGO in Australia? How did that come about and what was the impact on your operation planning in terms of positive? How it did impact your operation and did come with any restriction?
Yeah, so in February last year, we partnered with Global Development Group. I believe that's who you're referring to, or GDG, who they really helped us a lot because pretty much to that date, we registered as a NGO in Lesotho, which was a surprisingly complicated process, but we got there. But then we were getting all our funds from Australia and we didn't have any compliance in Australia. We're literally doing GoFundMe and asking people to give money. And for me, coming from like an engineering background, I actually had no idea about charities and NGOs. I literally didn't really know anything. So it was also a case of being like, we want to be compliant. We want to adhere to the Australian regulations and we want to do everything above board and manage our finances properly and have the right oversight. So we approached Global Development Group who assist with the compliance governance, making sure we're doing everything properly. We got like safeguarding policies in place. We got like harassment policies in place, all this. We got proper frameworks in place.
HR come back at you always.
HR, yeah. But in saying that, it's been really good. And a lot of things we didn't consider have come up through that and really helped us become a better organization. So yes, the Global Development Group have done a lot for us, helping us get compliant on that side of things. And then a real benefit is tax deductibility as well. And I think it's one of those things that if somebody's going to give to an organization, if they're complying with all the Australian standards and they're doing everything right, they're managing their money properly, they have proper accountability, that goes a long way. You can trust your money is being actually used for what it's supposed to be getting used for. I think that's really helped us at giving people that trust, as well as the tax deductibility has obviously helped as well. Because previously people would give and they'd get no tax benefit from it. So
fully crowdfunded then for a long time.
Yeah. So also, I know for me as well, I also felt like it's something we should do for our supporters. That we should try and get more compliant, get tax deductibility so that when they give, they can help themselves out from a tax point of view as well.
Yeah. Okay, so very first step then, let me get that journey first. You've got this inspiring thing. First step, is to start with the project in Blitz Village to involve the local community, get resources, and you're at this point registered as a non-for-profit, but without legal support. And so one of your first steps is then to put that into rules with the partner, but that doesn't come with any attachment. You continue to operate the way you operated first. You're the one that sets the goals. They don't restrain you in any activity, right?
No, they're really supportive. As long as we have to have clear goals that we agree with them. So obviously we have to keep to our goals. We're not going to start, I don't know, go and open a soft drink business or something where we're not going to, we have our goals and our foundation is water, sanitation, education. That's our three. And if we've got any changes to our project goals or anything like that, obviously we need to communicate with Global Development Group. It's all about transparency and supporting us in our goals.
They bring accountability also.
Yeah.
Tom, you remember before we kickstarted the project at Gawinian in Mohalesu, we realized that installing taps and tanks and everything would also involve stepping into the government's property at the clinic. So we had to go to the Ministry of Health, and we had a discussion with them that this is our plan. The plan is to upgrade the water system at this village. And we realized that at the clinic, there's shortage of water, and the tanks that are storing water there are leaking and all of that. So we would like, with your permission, to upgrade that and make it functioning better again. So we got permission via a letter from the Ministry of Health that we were given a go-ahead to upgrade the water system at the clinic as well. So when we go to a village, we do a thorough inspection and involve all stakeholders that are responsible for anything that we're going to have to touch as Lokisa.
Okay, yeah, that's good insight. It's another question I had. Okay, it sounds all good. And then what are the challenges beyond the calls and the road and the infrastructure? So there is some legal aspect of it. What else did you come across that you didn't think would be a problem and you had to firefight?
I think Blitz, you touched on well about dealing with the government. Like all our water projects, we have to get approval through the Ministry of Water as well. Each district has its own department, so there's a lot of communication with them, and usually they're really easy and make good plans. Ministry of Health was a little bit more difficult to get approvals from, and we're also working with the Ministry of Education because we've got a Water for Schools project where we're focusing on primary schools in Lesotho. There's 1,478 primary schools in Lesotho. So we spoke to the Minister of Education and said, which are your most in need primary schools? And we'll go there and we'll improve the water situation. So we ended up getting some great relationships there. But yeah, it's tough going from nowhere to building those relationships and building like a rapport and a trust. But yeah, in Lesotho, like nearly every day, you're surprised. Something has happened that's surprising. I don't know if you agree, Blitz, but there's always like outrageous things always happening and you never see them coming. And yeah.
Example?
I mean, we went to survey a preschool for a water project. Our head plumber, I gave him the drop pin on Google Maps. I was like, okay, can you go to this place and find out what's happening? And he gets there, where he gets close and he sees there's a massive river between where the preschool is and where the road ends. And he's like, how on earth do I get over there? And then there's a guy sitting in a little canoe down by the river. And he's saying like, it's 30 Maluti to cross the river. And he's kind of like, is there any other way to get there? No, you have to cross the river. So he gets down there and then he realizes the guy's also only got one arm and the river's like flowing pretty strongly. But then this guy, he gets in this like tiny canoe to go across this like raging river. The feedback from the plumber was like, he thought he was going to die. Like he thought he didn't have trust in this guy with the one arm, but it turned out that guy, he used that one arm very well and they got across and everything was good. But like, maybe the example is that you just don't know what to expect.
That's a good example. I mean, lots of technical issues.
Technical issues like it's snowing or like the wind. We had a tank blow away the other week. A massive wind came through and it picked up the tank and blew it off the mountain. It's stuff you just never expect. We've had fires. We've had things catch on fire. We've had pipes explode and water shoot like tens of meters into the air. And
so back to compliance then, I understand that would be quite a bit of a scary aspect once you are the founder or once your name is on the non-profit one. How do you keep all those people safe? And was that difficult legally to get? Do you have to get an insurance, a lawyer, and all that for the nonprofit?
We actually haven't had any major issues we've had to deal
Mm.
with to date. Like being Australian as well, I'm pretty safety conscious. Before we do anything, I'll talk through the safety aspects and do a sort of mini risk assessment on is this actually safe? And then also go, is there any other way to do it? If there's no other way, like we got to make a plan. We had a tank. It was like there's a 10-meter tank stand. And on top of that tank was on top of the stand was like a 2-meter tank. So it's probably like 12 meters in the air. And we needed to get a guy on top of the tank. And there's no way to get up there. We're trying to figure out how to do it. And one of my guys was like, well, I know a guy who's got a crane. Can we hook the guy on the hook? He can hold onto the hook and we'll just drop him off on the top. So their plan was to have the guy hold on. And so first of all, I was like, no. We need to get like a harness at least. If this is the only way to do it, like there's no other way to get up there. Like you couldn't climb the thing. You couldn't. So it was literally like a crane or nothing. So then we went through the steps of getting a proper harness and clipping the guy in and doing some test runs to begin with and going through all the safety. And so I feel like you do end up in some risky situations, particularly with climbing tanks and tank stands, because often the tanks are placed high in the villages. We end up trying to work in places which are really in need. So often there's no electricity. And so you have to do everything by gravity. So we've often got these large tank stands and you've got to climb to the top. So the water to gravity feed down. And particularly in winter, those pipes burst and stuff like that. So you're in sort of precarious positions. So I've really tried to work with the guys on making sure everything's done in a safe manner. And it's better I prefer you take all day to do a simple job if you do it safely. So yeah, we've been fortunate to date not to have had any major issues.
Good. So you talked about a lot of support, being very well welcome and well received as a person and as a project. Do you have any detractor that is not helping or making Lokisa's journey more difficult?
We have had some challenges with people stealing stuff. Like we'll order materials for a project and we'll put it in the store, and then somebody will come and steal like some of our cement or pipes or fittings and stuff like that. So that's been a bit of a detractor. We've had a bit of vandalism as well. And sometimes with vandalism, you never know why people do things that they do, but we've had people cut pipes. We don't know who did it, but it was like we had a pipe on the side of a mountain and somebody came and they cut the pipe. You could see the cut mark on the pipe. And then when that pipe was under high pressure. So the water was shooting. You could see it from kilometers away. There's this water stream going into the air. I don't know, it was one of those situations. What on earth has happened there? And you get up there and somebody's cut it with a hacksaw. I'm not sure if they're trying to steal the pipe or if they're just trying to, I don't know. You can't understand vandalism. It happens in every country, happens all over the place. But this is a tough one. It's a tough one to take when you're like, you've just cut the water supply to a whole village. You're now affecting people's livelihoods. Why on earth would you do this? And I think some of it also, that's also why education is an important part of what we do. Is we try and educate on the importance of maintaining the water system and how it feeds so many different people. And so I'd say they're probably our main detractors, which is fairly minor. We generally have really good support from people. We've got overwhelming number of project requests.
Yeah. Okay.
And at the moment, we're still small. Like we have, like I was saying, we've got one full-time guy who does one project at a time. Like we move from project to project. We can essentially do one project at a time. So when we're able to fundraise more, we've got the projects there. We'll be able to have 2 guys or 3 guys out there working on these projects.
How much do you need per project, more or less?
It's like 10 to 15,000 Australian dollars, and that'll support a project for 6 months.
Wow. So 15 to 20K, and you will have an impact on 2,000 people?
Yeah, that's probably a good estimate of a village size. Our goal for this year is $50,000. We're stepping out, and we've set a good target for ourselves. And in the year, I think we've got 3 village water projects lined up. We've got about 6 primary schools. We were actually at a hospital last week. We had a call from the Ministry of Health that a major hospital in one of the capital cities had no access. Something happened to their water system. Can we go and have a look at what happened? And we went and we saw that they had 2 main pumps, and the 2 pumps had failed, and they'd actually they were being destroyed, I think from overuse and electricity fluctuations and stuff like that. So we replaced those pumps. We were able to fundraise, replace those pumps, and sort out a few other issues. And got restored water to the hospital.
For a hospital, the Minister of Health wouldn't fund, or the government wouldn't fund repair?
This is where maybe, I don't know, the politics come into it and things that I don't always get the picture of. But like we got a call from a person in the Ministry of Health and said, please, can you guys go and help us here? I don't know what their financial situation was, but they had an urgent need and they needed expertise to go and look at it. So he said, sure, like we can see that's an urgent need. We'll go and look. So yeah, it's big project. It's water for schools. It's random stuff that comes up like that.
We also do preschools, Tom. Yeah. Not only primary schools.
Very important.
Don't forget
Yeah.
the preschools. Yeah, good point.
Awesome. So lots of projects, lots of requests because the work is so impactful that people want it to happen to their village. Not much funding and help from the government or the ministry that needs it because of internal politics, but you are fully crowdfunded and you have a big target for next year. How do you get exposure? How do you get to meet this target?
We've just started this year doing podcasts. So trying to get the word out. That way, I think we mentioned social media. I think between me and Blitz, we try and do social media, but I also struggle sometimes. There's only so many pictures you can post of like someone digging a trench or putting a pipe in a hole. It loses its intrigue after a few. But actually, just a few days ago, I posted a picture. There was a leaking pipe. We had to dig down like 2.5 meters to get to the pipe. The hole is enormous. It was that pipe got probably buried. So it was quite an effort to get down there. That was interesting. But trying to have unique content to engage people and to try and bring people's focus. I think like in Australia, you've got your own problems. You're dealing with your own life. Seeing the challenges of people in Lesotho, thousands of kilometers away in a random country in the middle of nowhere, it can be hard to get people to engage.
It's cut through the noise also because you get all those requests from everywhere. You go on social media, you bombard. So how do you get through the noise?
Yeah.
Because it's even more difficult than just having to get people attention. Is like, how do you even get in front of these people? Because the algorithm is not feeding your content to everyone, right? So I guess this is where the social media strategies become difficult, but also very important. So definitely the podcasting will ask for anyone. If you want to fund a very impactful project rather than, another subletting companies or SAS platform, we've got millions and they don't do anything new or their service needs that they've created themselves. Yeah, very, very different words. So we'll try to get the word out, but definitely the social media is a difficult one. So we're doing Facebook, we're doing LinkedIn, are we doing YouTube? Are we doing TikTok?
You're like our social media expert, Blitz. He's our selfie expert.
I'll take that.
We're not doing TikTok. Maybe we need to do TikTok.
Yeah, I'm very popular there. So
Here you go.
So we might have to incorporate this into TikTok as well.
Get the children to sing.
Exactly.
We do Instagram.
Instagram too. Okay. So you're on all major social media platforms. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably we have a mailing list where we email out once every few months an update of the projects and stuff like that. So if people are interested, we also do that. I think you can just Google Lokisa Water Project Lesotho. But maybe one thing that we're trying to do is we're just trying to be like super honest, just transparent about what we do and how we do it. And like the fact that we're run by volunteers and we employ local people. And we're really like, the goal is really just to try and make a difference. Like we're not in it for any other reward or anything like that. So hopefully that maybe separates us a little bit. We're not taking any salaries.
Definitely. It makes a difference. Now, let me ask you a last question that is a bit technical still, but is there in the card to build a revenue stream to fund the impact part of the project? Because we hear a lot that you have to follow the money, and when there's money, there's power. And if you had that in the cards, then you could fund yourself. Is that something that you would consider as dual business model?
Yeah, I think that is something we have looked into. In the city, like the government is putting out tenders for water projects and stuff like that. So that is something we have looked into. It would be great to win a tender and then go out and do a water project. Probably the main difference at the moment is that like we're still relatively small and it takes us a fairly long time to do a project, and we have ways we like doing things. So getting a big tender like that would require a lot more admin and payroll and a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's something that would be great, but I think it would take up a lot more of like Blitz and my time. And I think it would be amazing to be able to do that, to be able to be self-funded and make a difference. So that's certainly on the cards for the future. I think we probably still have a bit of growing and we're a bit of a way to being there. But yeah, otherwise we are doing like Blitz says, we're selling t-shirts and hats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is a small one. But
yeah, it's still very resourceful. I'm very amazed, and thank you so much for sharing your entire story. I think the message I want to get out really is that you can make a difference with not that much, but it does take people like yourself, like Blitz, to actually have some skin in the game and put time, energy, efforts, and relationship and all that.
I just have to mention that when we're done with the project, there are some maintenance resources that we leave with the villagers and some education on how to go about the maintenance. And they also, in my village, where we first started with the project, they have started raising funds. They have a little bit of a cash flow that they've kept somewhere, so that when the resources that we left run off or they're finished, they're able to replenish or replace those resources with the amount of money that they kept contributing over a period of time. I just don't know up to what end do they continue to raise funds for themselves. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. What is your biggest highlight, your biggest heartwarmer that you have from this journey, both of you, starting with you, Blitz?
To be honest with you, it would be that of having started or kickstarted the project at my village, because I grew up there. I would walk kilometers and hours to fetch water. It was a challenging thing. I'm realizing right now that it was quite challenging, but at the time when I was in it, when I was fully embedded in it, I didn't see it as a challenge. So changing the lifestyle of someone to a better form is really what was my highlight of the moment of the entire project since it started. Because those people's lives are so much better right now, because Tom, we installed a tap just above my house next to an old granny. I think she's about 90 years old now, just next to her house. And she was thrilled. She was like, this is life-changing for me. I'm almost close to my grave, but at least I will have lived a better life for this short period that's remaining for me on earth. So that really was heartwarming for me.
Awesome.
It made a huge change in her life and in the lives of the people that surround her.
Yeah, so much. How about you, Tom?
one of the most heartwarming and highlights for me was I designed a hand washing station. And the idea was for multiple kids to wash their hands at the same time. It's not a very complicated thing. It's essentially a pipe with lots of holes in it. And the kids line up and they all wash their hands. So it's not like, not rocket science here. And I wasn't really sure how it was going to work. And I wasn't sure if they were going to like it and whatever. And yeah, we built it and then we got the kids to come and try it out. And I think, yeah, for me, seeing the joy on the kids' faces, they're dancing, they're singing, they were so like excited about be able to wash their hands under this like little hand washing station. It was quite like almost life-changing, that something so simple that we all take for granted, having access to water and washing your hands, was such a powerful thing for these kids. And then I came back a few weeks later, they wrote a song about washing their hands. So every time they go to wash their hands, the kids all sing this song about, I am washing. I'm not a singer, but they sung this beautiful little song. And it was, that was really heartwarming to see the children responding in that way.
That's amazing. This is this kind of thing you're going to cut through attention.
I'm sure I've got a video of this somewhere.
You're from the Northern Beaches in Australia, a very comfortable lifestyle, very comfortable future without, yes, hustling, but very all set lifestyle. And you move your entire family there with your wife having some roots in Lesotho. Was that decision a no-brainer? And you explained a little bit on how it came about, but how was this whole moving your entire family, having 2 babies in Lesotho rather than in Australia?
Yeah, that's a funny question. We got 3 kids now. I got 1-year-old, 3 and 5. But yeah, I think of my parents are probably going to listen to this, but I think of my parents when I said, we're going to move to Lesotho. They're like, what? Like, why? Like, they were actually really supportive, but like the shock of like, why on earth would you want to do that? I think a lot of my friends also like, why on earth would you go to Lesotho? Yeah, we definitely had some interesting responses. Coming from Northern Beaches as well. I think people like the Northern Beaches is one of the most beautiful places in the world, I would say. Why would you want to leave that?
So yeah, it's a very interesting narrative that you got there. So that's why I'm interesting. So your parents were like shocked but supportive. Your wife was on board straight away?
Yeah, I think ever since I'd met her, she'd always been passionate about Africa. She was born in South Africa. I think because she's a nurse, and so she's passionate about health. And I guess being a nurse, you have to be passionate about helping others anyway. So I think we always are like needing an engineer, and she teases me about being like boring and calculated and stuff like that. So I think it was also a surprise, like that it would be like for my work that we'd be moving to Africa. As I said before, we felt a real conviction to step out of our comfort zone and try and do something with a positive impact. Maybe like you said before, like often people think like you need qualifications and you need the right resources and tools and this much experience before you can go and do something. But for us, it was more of a case of let's just go and do something and do our best and see what we can do. And I think also coming from Australia, like we have such world-class education as well. You don't even realize you've got these skills. You can really put them to use in the resources you have just by being an Australian. It goes such a long way. Yeah, just a conviction to go and do something with a positive impact.
That was Tom, Jacobs and Bokang Ntseo for Lokisa Water Project. I hope you enjoyed the ride as much as I did, because getting big pipes and tanks by donkey and horses and a hike is a hell of a salutable effort. Like you and I drive to the grocery shop 10 minutes down the road, right? And did your heart smile when Blitz told us about the 90-year-old granny saying how grateful she was to have a better life for even a short time remaining on time because of having access to clean water? Now, picture 10 to 20K. What would you do with it? Lots of companies have to raise a great deal of funds, which is of course inherent to the tech they're building. And 10 to 20K may not go really far, it might be spent in a blink of an eye. But for Tom and Blitz, we've got projects costing 10 to 20K, impacting 2,000 people in one go. And I was really curious about the white savior narrative. And both Tom and Blitz clearly said they were none. Because clearly, Tom didn't get there to live in a white people's suburb. He went to the country, in the mountains, and he didn't get there to tell people what to do. He asked questions, he listened, and with Blitz's invaluable local insight and skills, they put together projects that people want, where they need it, how they need it. And one very, very important part, they involve the local worker and they create the water committee, which is the empowering piece transferring ownership in the hand of the villages they served. And that's long-term sustainability, and their products are, of course, welcome. The other bit that I really loved is how MG Health, where Tom and Blitz work together, is enabling this with time, in-kind support, and advice. If you're employed, it doesn't mean that you can't go and have great ambitious projects besides your corporate employment. You just need to go talk to your company and get their support. If you want to support Lokisa Water Project for more children dancing around hand-washing station and more old grannies getting a chance to chill instead of a hike to get a glass of water, jump on their website. It goes through a fully accredited organization and it's tax deductible. Just Google Lokisa Water Project GDG and enjoy the feel-good moment after you hit the pay button. So, tell me, what's one skill you could use to impact many? Hey, thanks for listening. If you like the show, share it. Tune in for monthly episodes. You can follow multiple hats, visit my website. That's angeliquegreco.com.au or follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Just search for Angelique Greco. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to tell me about your story, leave me a message.